Welcome into Bet On It, the NFL edition here, week 2. And that's where we stand here, Joe Raineri alongside Marco D'Angelo. And as those of you that might have seen on social media, we are missing our leader here, Kelly Stewart, unfortunately this week. We apologize for getting this show up a little bit later, but some unforeseen circumstances there, and I can just tell you now, if you guys are like us here at Wager Talk, and you love dogs and you love pets, then it is absolutely one of the worst things to have to say goodbye, and that's unfortunately what happened with Kelly this week, and our heart aches for her. She wasn't able to do the show here this week, but have no fear, she'll be back next week. She was pretty adamant about making sure that the show goes on, so we will absolutely do that. But our thoughts are with Kelly at this particular moment in time. But we do want to break down some games for you and get you the information you need. VR will be by a little bit later, giving us some gold. Ralph with his TNA angles that you'll need to know about. Let's not forget, of course, about Andy Lang, and the prop shop will be here in addition to our barking dogs, best bets, you name it, Marco. We've got it here on Bet On It, and we ask that you go ahead and hit that subscribe, hit that like button if you're new to us here on Bet On It and Wager Talk TV, as we want to start, well, with a Thursday night game, and that's going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles, Marco, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who did everything in their power to lose that game to Baker Mayfield in Tampa last week. But now they got to travel to the Eagles, who got by, unfortunately, the New England Patriots. So what are you doing in this Thursday night matchup for us?
Well, Minnesota definitely succeeded in their mission of giving the game away. 3 turnovers did them in, and we know in the NFL, if you're -3 in the turnover department, you aren't going to win very many football games. Now, guys, week 2 of the NFL, is just like we said last week in college football, overreaction week. Everybody is going to see something that they saw in week 1, and all of a sudden it becomes gospel. Well, Minnesota, we know what Minnesota did last year with all of the close games that they won. They had that incredible 11-0 start, and everybody just wanted to bash them every single week, saying they're lucky, it's going to catch up to them. Well, they entered this season with a lot of those same thoughts. So after seeing week 1, everybody's going to assume, yep, we told you so. There it is. That's the Vikings. Well, don't fall into that trap because what I saw last week, they shot themselves in the foot. I saw a Philadelphia defense that made Mac Jones, minus a 70-yard pick-6 interception, look pretty damn good last week. He was moving the football all around the field, and New England did everything but win that game last week against Philadelphia. So these are 2 misleading scores from last week. What's that do? That gets us some value this week. What else? These 2 played last year. They played on a Monday Night Football game, and Philadelphia steamrolled them. Well, I don't see that happening this week. I like Minnesota to go into Philadelphia tonight. I think it's a generous point spread. I think this one comes down right to the wire. I think it'll be decided by a field goal either way, and I'm going to go ahead and call it Minnesota. Sorry, Dan. Minnesota 27-24. The Eagles suffer their first loss of the season.
Oh, we kidding? Dan didn't even bet his Eagles last week. You think he's backing him here this week? You got to be kidding here, our fearless producer. I agree with you here, Marco. I think this is a game in which we're going to see some offense, and I especially believe we're going to have some offense in the first half of this game. And listen, while New England gave Philadelphia a whole lot of points there in that first quarter, 16 to be exact, not that I was counting. Of course I was counting. But I will say this. They have, dating back to last year, they have been one of the best first-half teams and one of the most profitable first-half teams because they tend to get out in front. Now, there was some criticism about how conservative Philadelphia was Not enough Dallas Goedert, not enough taking the shots down the field. New England's defense, give them credit. That is not what you're going to get here with Minnesota. Now, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for Minnesota, he loves to blitz, doesn't he? And he blitzed an awful lot against Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. But here's the problem. He never got to him. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem here for Minnesota's defense, not just tonight, but moving forward. I think Jalen Hurts and I think, Dallas Goedert, I think Brown, I think offensively, they are going to be able to move the ball. I think this becomes a shootout, and I think it becomes a shootout rather quickly. Why? Because of the injuries that have mounted now for Philadelphia after 1 week. Their linebacking core, thin. They've lost already starting members of that secondary there. Bradbury's gone. They are going to have some issues trying to match up with one Justin Jefferson, who's basically going to be able to go into a mismatch all night long. So when I look at this game, I'm with you, Marco. I think it does ultimately come down to maybe a final possession when it's all said and done. But I think there's going to be a ton of excitement early and often in this game. I took the over in the first half, 24 and a half. I am expecting maybe a 17-14, 14-13 kind of situation heading in to the half. So we do have a couple of other primetime games we're going to talk about here, Marco, and we'll head to Sunday nights. And speaking of those New England Patriots, they have an interesting one coming up against the Miami Dolphins, who ironically most people have already crowned champions. Just give them the trophy. Marco, they're going to score 700 points. Just give them the trophy. How about you against New England?
Yeah, this is what is so great about week 2 of the NFL. Where was everybody talking about Miami before the season? All it was, it's Buffalo till they lose the division, and look out for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They were an afterthought. Nobody was talking about them. Now here they are. People are positioning them to win the AFC East. I think I actually did that back on our preview show, but that's for another story. This game here on Sunday night, this is the hype train. New England found a way to lose. Miami, nobody's going to stop that offense as long as Tua is healthy. Well, that's true, but man, what a bad scheduling spot for the start of the season. You have to go on the West Coast from Miami to start the season. Tough game against the Chargers, a game that was thrilling to watch, a lot of points, but those kind of games take a lot out of you. Now you got to travel for a second week in a row and go to New England. The Patriots last week, defense played well. After spotting them a touchdown on that 70-yard interception return, they held Philadelphia in check pretty much that entire football game. It was just a couple mistakes that cost them. They had several opportunities in the fourth quarter to put points on the board to cover the game and elected not to, and even had a dreaded 2-point conversion called back. Not that I was counting, Joe. Just saying. Okay? It factored into the point spread. But I think they get the job done this week. Bill Belichick at home, off a loss. I like that scenario. Week 2 team. And I got, a couple situations here point out to you. Both meetings last year, as high-flying as this Miami offense was, and one game was early, one game was late. So obviously the latter game, you didn't have a Tua available, but they held them to 21 and 20 points in those 2 meetings last year. I'm going to go ahead to take it. How many times have you heard me say? Kelly loves when I say this saying, you give me the better defense, getting points. I'm going to sign up for that every time. And clearly, as we saw from last week's track meet with Miami, the better defense lives in New England. I'm getting points on a Sunday night. Bill Belichick off a loss. That's it. Divisional home dog. And for Kelly, who loves those primetime home dogs, let's go ahead and bring home New England plus the points.
All right. Yeah, I think you and I were on the same page last week with New England there, Marco, and you crushed it on the show last week. So a big congrats to you, looking to keep it rolling this week, because I agree with you again. on New England, but I'm also going to look at the total here, Marco. And for all those reasons you just pointed out, I'm going under 46.5 in this primetime game. And listen, Vic Fangio, love him. But if you're going to keep playing two safeties high and think that that is somehow or another going to prevent, Herbert and the running game from being able to dominate you, which is what happened, Marco. Those stats for Austin Eckler and for the Chargers running game against Miami were absolutely ridiculous. So my question is, why is anything going to change with New England? Miami is going to have a problem stopping the run. And you know what? New England gets back this week. Yeah, they get back both, not one, but both of their starting guards who were out last week against Philadelphia. So they're going to have their healthy starting offensive line ready to go, taking on a Miami defense that was less than stellar against the run. And we've already seen last week, we saw Mac Jones be able to throw the ball when he needed to. And I don't think Bill Belichick is going to want anything to do with a shootout in this game. Conference, division matchup here, awful loss at home. All that lines up to me to an under here at 46.5. I think all the value is in the under in this matchup on Sunday night. But let's be realistic here, Marco. There is a game on Monday night. There's two games on Monday night, but I have a feeling there's really only one game on in the D'Angelo household here on Monday night, and that might have to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers as they take on the Cleveland Browns. So, Marco, come on. You were just as disappointed as the Steelers were in their performance last week. What are you doing this week against Cleveland?
Well, you are absolutely right about what game will be on, but I'll probably be at a sports bar and have both games on, but there'll also be a plate of chicken wings involved.
Yeah.
I may have a Steelers terrible towel just in case I got a little wing sauce, I got to wipe off. You never know. But this is what we're looking at. And if you ever wanted to say, here is the poster child for overreaction game for week 2, here it is. You had the Cleveland Browns absolutely dismantle the Cincinnati Bengals last week, 24-3. You had the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely get dismantled by the San Francisco 49ers in that future Hall of Fame quarterback, Brock Purdy, 30-7. Guys, let's stop and break this down before we jump on that overreaction train. First of all, Joe Burrow had not taken a snap all preseason, okay? Got hurt early on in training camp with the groin injury. You can't replicate game speed in practice. We tell you that all the time. And he looked like an absolutely rusty quarterback last week. And as far as the Browns go, yeah, they've got to be improved this year on the offensive side. There's no excuses for them. They got their man behind center. Granted, last year, the Deshaun Watson experiment was a total bust because of the suspension. He was playing catch-up the whole year. Once he finally did get to use the facilities and become the starter, never got that chemistry going with his receiver. So the Browns are going to be an improved team this year. The Steelers, well, there was such a love fest for the Steelers, and I kept telling everybody, pump the brakes a little bit. Don't get too excited. It's preseason football. It means nothing. We saw that last week as the 49ers absolutely dismantled them. What concerned me with the Steelers last week is the way they got gashed on the ground. That's something you usually don't do against the Steelers. If you told me they were going to throw for a lot of yards, the secondary has problems, I would not have been surprised. But for this matchup, I've got to look to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're playing back-to-back games at home. You got absolutely embarrassed. And Mike Tomlin, over his coaching career, like Bill Belichick, this has been one of the best of bouncing back off of the loss. We also have the history in this one where Pittsburgh has owned the Steelers. Sorry, Ralph and Brian, but there was a stretch where the Steelers won 33 of 37 meetings against the Browns. Now, over the last 9 matchups, I got to admit, it's just been 5-4 Pittsburgh. They definitely have closed the gap, these two teams. But given the situation and given the fact that Cleveland feeling a little fat and sassy after last week. You got a wounded bear in the Steelers after being embarrassed the way they are. Tomlin, in his career, off of a loss of 10 points or more, how about 15-5 against the spread? And here is a league-wide angle that we use in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. Underdogs or pick'ems who are off a home loss of 10 points or more in either of the first 2 weeks, you take them in the next week blindly. 5-year stat, how about 22-3 against the spread? That puts me on Pittsburgh here, 21-17. And yeah, we'll use the T word. I'll have some teasers involved with Pittsburgh closing out on Monday night as well.
Yeah, well, I had a few teasers with them last week there, Pittsburgh. Appreciate that. Appreciate it very much, Dale. But I will say this here. I think much like we just talked about in these other primetime games, I'm going to attack the total, and I'm going to look in the first half here, Marco, because I think both of these teams are searching for something in the passing attack. The problem is, I mean, did you see Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator for Cleveland versus, Joe Woods, who was Mr. Conservative? There was nothing conservative about what the Browns did and how they came after everybody. And I anticipate they're going to do that against Pickett. So I don't know how they're going to drop him back and anticipate and leave him back there with an opportunity to get crushed. So I think the running game is going to be huge for not just Pittsburgh, but it's going to be huge for the Browns as well. They've got to get Chubb going. They've got to be able to hold time of possession because Deshaun Watson also still searching there for some rhythm with his guys. It wasn't a great night. 29 passes, I believe. He only had 158 yards. It wasn't great. Now, granted, the weather wasn't great either, but the way the Steelers and the Browns are going to win games, it's going to be by playing smash mouth football. There's no way I think this thing gets to 40, and I don't think it's going to get to 20 at the break. This has got 10-7, 10-3 written all over it, Marco, in the first half. So I'm going to take the under in the first half with the Browns and the Steelers. So good stuff there, and we've got much more coming your way here because the man, the myth, the pen, Mr. Ralph Michaels is going to be joining us here in just a second with his weekly NFL TNA.
Welcome to NFL TNA, guys. Week number 2. Some upsets last week. I will say this. Road teams went 12-4 against the spread, and the over-under, there was only 4 overs and 12 unders last week. So we're going to start with a chart here. And basically, I'm not telling you to bet any of these situations. I just want to make you aware. So I looked back since 2017 and looked at every situation in Game 2, what happened to opponents Game 1. So on the chart, here you will see, if the team won as a home favorite, they've gone 32.4% the next game. If they won as a home dog, they were in a losing position, 45.5%. If they won as an away favorite, only 23 teams, but in Game 2, those teams went 61%. And if you won as an away dog, 47.8%. Now let's take a look if you lost Game 1. Lost as a home favorite, lost as an away favorite, you've been 50% Week 2. But if you lost as a home dog in Week 1, you've done well in Week 2, going 65.2%. But if you lost as an away dog, it's been a negative of 37.5%. So the biggest thing that jumps out to me, again, just take a look at it. You're not going to base a play on it. But those teams that win as a home favorite in week number 1 have only gone 11-23, 32.4% against the spread in game number 2. And now let's talk about 4 situations. Before I get to those, I do want to mention a great special I have. For only the 3rd time in Wager Talk, I'm going to have a 5% college football and a 5% NFL football. You buy both of those days individually, $39 each day, $78. How would you like to try a month for under $150? Use the code RALPH50, RALPH50. Save 50% off a 30-day all access, 50% off a 90-day all access, or 50% off a 12-month all access, and get 2 big 5% plays this week. Oh yeah, by the way, last Saturday and Sunday, an 8 and 2 80% weekend. Let's get to it. System number 1, bet on it NFL TNA. If you have 0 wins and you are off a loss as a home favorite, and now you're on the road. So this could be week 2, week 3, week 4, any undefeated team on the road. Excuse me, you can't be, you have, sorry guys. Okay, all right, appreciate it, thank you. Here we go, guys, NFL week number 2, bet on it TNA. Let's start off with the first system. I have 4 in the NFL. First, if you have 0 wins, you're on the road, and you're off a loss as a home favorite. So obviously, if you lost in week 1 and you're on the road week 2, this applies. But this one can also apply to weeks 3, 4, and 5 for any winless team that's off a loss as a home favorite. These teams have been incredible. 72.3% against the spread, going all the way back to 2014. It applies to Minnesota, Seattle, the Chargers, Chicago, and Kansas City this week. All of those teams, no wins on the road off a previous loss as a home favorite. System number 2. I mentioned that last week in week 1, 4 overs, 12 unders, 75% to the under. Well, since 2000, if you bet every NFL game number 2 team under the total, you have actually cashed 57.1%. And if you have a division game in game 2, those have gone under the total 62.4%. So week 2 games have gone under, week 2 division games have gone under, and there are 6 division games this week in the NFL. System number 3. This is one of my favorite because it makes so much sense because of the energy you had to exert. If you trailed at halftime by 9 points or more, and you came back to win the game. Well, that was the Jets on Monday night. Those teams that trailed at halftime, came back and won, have gone 38.5%. If those teams trailed by 9 at halftime and won at home, like the Jets, those teams have won 29.5%. If you trailed by 9 at halftime, won at home, and now you're on the road, like the Jets, they have gone 27.9%. So a system that makes sense. You trailed at halftime, you won. You trailed at halftime and won at home. Now you trailed at halftime, won at home, and you're on the road. Again, the Jets apply to all 3. That's just how we break down ATS records to find the best available numbers. And the final system here, system number 4. Write this one down, guys. Listen how good this is. In game number 2 of the season, you lost to a division foe in game number 1, and you're playing a division foe in game number 2. NFL teams tend to rebound off a loss, but if you are 0-1 in your division and playing a second straight division opponent, like Cincinnati, like Indianapolis, and like Carolina, these teams have gone 25-5, 83.3% against the spread. And how about this? If you do like any of those dogs, they have gone 25-6 straight up with an average line of plus 0.8. So you have an underdog situation in the NFL since the year 2000 that has won 80.6% straight up and 83.3% against the spread. Remember, guys, I put a PDF page on my homepage at Wager Talk, the shortcut wt.buzz/RM, a free download with all the college football TNA, all the NFL TNA, plus the 2 charts we talked about today. Make sure you download it. You'll be glad you did and bet on it.
Always great stuff there, Ralph. But now hold on. We gave you the TNA. Now we got to go prop shopping. And who better than with Andy Lang?
Yeah, we'll start with the prime time game, Vikings and Eagles, and I'm taking an under here with Alexander Mattison, 51.5 rushing yards. I think this line is just way, way too high. You know, if we take a look at him just from a fantasy football perspective, one of the worries about him was he'd averaged 3.75 yards per carry the last 2 years. That was with Dalvin Cook, and it was like, well, is he not good, or is the offensive line not good? Well, we got a small sample size last week, and it did not go well. 11 carries for 34 yards. That's 3.1 yards a carry. The Vikings ended up throwing the ball 44 times against the Bucs. And Joe, this game between the Vikings and the Bucs, it was a one-score game the whole time. There was no game script that said the Vikings had to abandon the run. This was just the Vikings throwing the ball a ton. They got nothing going on the ground. The Eagles' defense, my gosh, they look so good. They held New England to 3.5 yards a carry. No running back for New England had more than 30 yards. The longest rush was 11. So you expect the Eagles to play well tonight on defense. These teams played last year. Minnesota rushed the ball 11 times total. Their leading rusher was Kirk Cousins with 20 yards. So this 51.5 total for Madison seems way too high. Give me the under.
All right, going under there in a Thursday nighter. I know you do have a best bet that you're looking at here in week 2. What game are you looking at?
Let's take a team total. Let's go to the Jaguars and under 23.5 points. The Jags scored 31 points against the Colts. They only had 17 points with 6 minutes left in the game. They scored 2 touchdowns after that. One of those touchdowns, they got great field position from a 48-yard punt return. The other touchdown, they got great field position from an interception. I'm high on this Chiefs defense. They gave up 21 points to Detroit. That was without Chris Jones. 1 touchdown was a pick 6. 1 touchdown, the Lions needed a fake punt on 4th down to extend the drive. This is a Chiefs defense that gave up 253 yards passing, only 3.5 yards a carry. The Chiefs have been nailing their draft picks. They are full of young, talented guys. And without Chris Jones, they looked great last week. They're getting Chris Jones back. He said he's in shape. The Chiefs have said he's in shape. Last year in the playoffs, these two teams played. The Chiefs held Jacksonville to 20 points. Trevor Lawrence didn't look great, only had 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I think this is a little bit of a rock fight. Give me the Jags under 23.5.
All right, there you go. Jags under 23.5. And Anley, finally, I know that you always like to go with Kelly and a best bet that she might be looking at here and throw us a prop. What did you look at here in this game coming up?
Yeah, so Kelly's best bet involves the Texans and the Colts, right up my alley. And every week I'm going to give out a prop in Kelly's best bet game. Let's go with C.J. Stroud over 215.5 yards passing. Joe, I talked all offseason about my Colts and how bad their secondary is, and this is just a fade of them. Trevor Lawrence last week completed 75% of his passes, and one of his incompletions was an interception that literally hit Tank Bigsby in the face and bounced to a Colts defender. Lawrence he could do whatever he wanted. Jacksonville had 5 guys with 5 or more receptions. C.J. Stroud, I know they got beat up by the Ravens, but he threw for 242 yards against Baltimore, and the Houston rush game looked terrible. They averaged 3.1 yards per carry. And the best part of the Colts defense is that interior with DeForest Buckner. They're good against the run. They held Jacksonville to 3 yards per carry. The way to attack the Colts is through the air. This game should be close. I think C.J. Stroud's throwing most of the game. I think he has success. Give me the over 215.5.
There you go. Prop shop. It is here on Bet On It NFL Week 2. Andy, tell the fine folks exactly what you got going on over at wagertalk.com.
Well, we've got our best bet up for Thursday Night Football, and we have our 5% NFL play that is up. We hit it last week, which means we're now 22-9 in NFL 5% plays going back to last season. We've just been fantastic, and we just creeped into the number 1 spot for units over the last 365 days. And we're running a quick little promo code. It's good through Saturday. Use a promo code FLASH999. Get you 1 year of all sports for $999. That's half price. So kind of a little celebration of us moving up the rankings and finally grabbing that number 1 spot for units gained. So if you want to get involved with all sports, promo code FLASH999.
All right, Andy, as usual, thank you very much. Some great plays there to look to take advantage of. And talking about taking advantage, our friends over at the Gold Sheet are offering you the opportunity to hop on board. I mean, we all use it here at Bet On It and Wager Talk because knowledge is power. And right now, they are giving you access to this week. That's right. The Gold Sheet team is inviting you to get free access to the NFL Week 2 as well as the NCAA College Football Week 3 edition. All you have to do, go to WT.buzz/GS and use those credentials on the screen. Username, WT Free, password, WT Free. You get analysis on every NFL and college football game. You get all the historic trends, all of the head-to-head angles, box scores from last week games, power ratings, everything you need in order to make smart sports investing decisions this week in the NFL and college football. It's free right now over at the Gold Sheet. Take advantage. Use those free username and password there. WT Free and WT Free over at the Gold Sheet. All right, Marco, as week 2 of the NFL season rolls on here, I do believe, even in week 2, there are some, shall we say, some traps, some spots teams got to be very, very careful about. Which one should we be looking at this week?
Yeah, Joe, we're going trap game of the week. And Joe, when we get to week 2, we make fun about the overreaction, and we have that whether it's college or pro, everybody says that. But in the NFL, we get something else in week 2. And if you've sat around any sports book in Las Vegas or anywhere, sat at any poker table, you will hear this sentence over and over on Sunday heading into week 2. Well, there's no way Team X can start the season 0-2. Okay? Everybody loves to say that and always involves good teams because we all know everybody will talk about it ad nauseum come week 3, that if you're 0-2, what your chances are of making the playoffs, so how important it is, you got to win that week 2 game. Is there a team that will be mentioned more times this week that can't possibly start 0-2 than the Kansas City Chiefs? No way. There's just no way they start 0-2, right? Come on. It's Mahomes. It's defending champs. It's Andy Reid. Well, go ahead and do that. Keep betting Kansas City. Make that line creep up a little more for me and let me have the Jacksonville Jaguars plus the points on their home field. These two teams played twice last year. And although Kansas City did win both of those games, they were in a little bit of a fight both times, especially the second meeting whenever they lost or when they beat Jacksonville in the playoffs. Now, I got to point out we say it all the time, revenge is the most overused word because every time two teams play and then they play again sometime in the future, somebody's in the revenge mode. It doesn't get it all the time. But the revenge that does work is the revenge of playoff revenge. You never forget who ended your season. And Jacksonville has an opportunity on Sunday to extract their revenge and also send a message to the rest of the AFC that they're for real. And I believe they are. Trevor Lawrence, you saw the maturity and how much his game improved last season. Just 1 year under Coach Peterson. Coach Peterson is, you want to call him the quarterback whisperer? Hey, go ahead. Who else can win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles? That'll go into his, record book forever. You can't take that away from him. And you saw how much better Trevor Lawrence ran this offense last year. Kansas City, they win, but they don't cover. This is a team that when they play AFC teams the last 2 seasons, how about just 3-11 against the spread? Also, Peterson, as a home underdog in his coaching career, 19 times he's been installed as a home underdog. He's cashed the winning ticket 15 of the 19 times. That's good enough for me. Last week, we saw, obviously Kansas City struggled offensively, missing Kelsey, but this team still has other problems as well. I like Jacksonville. It's their turn. Go ahead and call the outright upset. Trap game of the week. Don't fall for it. We're taking Jacksonville 31-27.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. Jacksonville getting it done here, Marco says, against the Kansas City Chiefs. And, well, Marco, it's one of our favorite segments of the show. At least it's one of my favorite segments of the show anyway, because we got to talk about whether or not you are high or maybe not high enough. And quite honestly, when it comes to the Giants and the Cardinals, Marco, I'm not high enough here, and neither is the market with these two teams. And listen, I get it. The Giants go out. They get absolutely mauled by, quite honestly, one of the best, I don't know, top 2-3 pass rushing defenses in the NFL in terrible conditions. They don't score any points. They get blanked. Yes, I get it. But quite honestly, did we really think the New York Giants were going to be some sort of, the overnight just became this absolutely bottom 5 offense? No, they were about average heading into this year, and that's exactly what they are. But they are taking on now, instead of one of the top 2 or 3 defenses, they're taking on one of the worst. And if you don't think that Brian Daboll is going to be able to scheme against this Arizona defense and the looks that they are bringing with basically barely league average players, we're crazy here, guys. I mean, listen, we just watched Arizona have some success offensively with a quarterback who wasn't in the building more than 2 weeks there in Dobbs, but they had some success against a team where, I mean, call me crazy. The Giants' offense is better than Washington's. Its defense may not be better than Washington's, and yet Arizona had some success against Washington. Why wouldn't the Giants, with a better offense, have some success against Arizona? And why wouldn't Arizona still have a little bit of success against this Giants defense? I think the overreaction is absurd to have this thing priced around the 38.5, 39 mark. It does look like I'm seeing 40s now, but I still think it is way too low here. Expect the Giants and Brian Daboll to get that stench off them from last week against Dallas. They are a much better team than they showed, especially against bottom feeders, and that's exactly what Arizona is. So I am expecting this to go up, and away here over the total. Not high enough in my book here at this price. But now we've got to talk some barking dogs here, Marco. And if I'm not mistaken, I looked at this, but fortunately for you, you went ahead and posted this before I could. So go ahead and talk to me about your barking dog this week. Who are you looking at?
Well, at least I'm glad you're learning how to tell time and understand timestamps, Joe. This is a situation where, keeping with the theme of the show, overreaction week, and could there be more opposite end spectrums of these two teams' games last week? You had the Lions, who, was everybody's darling coming into this season. If it wouldn't have been for all of the hype regarding the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers coming in, Detroit was the team everybody was talking about, and deservedly so. They had a great run at the end of last season. Exciting football team. They could score points, a lot of high-scoring games because they couldn't stop anybody. The MO was you took Detroit as an underdog and stayed away from them when they were a favorite. Not that they were a favorite too often, but you just didn't trust that defense. Well, what'd they do last week? They upset the defending champs, Kansas City, on national TV on a Thursday night for all to see. Well, that's what they do best. They're an underdog, and they were able to win that football game. Now they're dressing up as a favorite, and we're way too far away from Halloween to think that this costume is going to work for them to be able to win as a favorite. I'm going to look at Seattle, who couldn't have looked any worse than they did last week, and thank you very much. I went against them last week with the Rams. Now we're going to take them. And part of the reason that I had the Rams last week was I wanted to go against Geno Smith in that first outing. He got the contract after a sensational season last year. It was the first time that he had a season that good, and it warranted him getting paid. Now, he got paid, little fat and sassy. Now there's expectations. It's a different whole different beast whenever they're expecting you to do something. Last year was supposed to be just a Band-Aid year, losing Russell Wilson to the Broncos, and he was supposed to maybe be a one-year bridge to something else. Well, he surprised everybody, and he got the starting job and got a contract. Now I look for them in the dog role against this Detroit team to be able to score points and cover the game. This is one of those ones where I think the team that has the football last is going to be the winner. I'm going to take Seattle plus the points as I got them winning 28-27. And let's just throw out a little reminder. You heard the stat that pertained to the Steelers that league-wide was 22-3 against the spread. That is the same angle that applies to Seattle in this one. Go ahead and take Seattle plus the points against those upstart Detroit Lions. Not quite drinking the Kool-Aid just yet. We'll take Seattle plus the points as the barking dog.
I am going to go just as disgusting, Marco, if not worse, because I'm going to go to Monday night and I'm going to take a look at the Carolina Panthers with that hook that's available right now, getting 3.5, taking on who? Dennis Allen and the New Orleans Saints. If somebody can please explain to me how in the world, after what they saw, that disgustingness against Tennessee at home, that somehow or another the New Orleans Saints should be laying points, much less 3.5, on the road in a divisional matchup is a little bit beyond me here. I think the Panthers take away the couple of Terrell interceptions that he had. I thought Bryce Young, and I still have more faith in Bryce Young than I do any of the other quarterbacks right now, the young quarterbacks that came out of this draft. I think Frank Wright at home in the spotlight will have him ready. I think he opens up the playbook more, and nothing that I saw from that offense of New Orleans leads me to believe that good old Burns isn't going to run roughshod and cause absolute havoc in this game there for Derek Carr. Love the defense of Carolina at home, divisional matchup, and I am getting more than a field goal. I will take that any day. Even with a rookie quarterback, I will take it because I think he very well may be the best of the rookie quarterbacks in this league right now. So I'm going to go Carolina plus 3.5 as my barking dog. All right. Now, back by popular demand, they say knowledge is power, and this man has plenty of that here as we welcome back in Las Vegas, Chris, to bet on it, to talk a little bit more about a concept, Chris, you mentioned last week, and there were a whole lot of comments about it, so hopefully we can gain a little clarification from exactly what a round robin is, my friend. Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be back. As I expressed last week, it's all our dirty little secrets. We are in the closet. We're not supposed to do these parlays, but we all do them, and we can't stop doing it. We just want that little extra action. And last week, I think I did a piss poor job of explaining exactly what I meant by a round robin. A lot of questions on what exactly it is. I recommended a round robin rather than having one long parlay of 4 or 5 or 6 teams. A round robin is a way, what I like to do is I like to get 5 teams or 4 teams and parlay them all with each other. And let's just use 5 as an example. I like to do 5 money line dogs sometimes when it's a good week. I don't always do it, but I just for chump change, this is sandwich money, just the money that you're going to spend at the movies or something. But I like to use the 5 teams in the money line round robin, and that works out to be 26 bets. So if you're going to invest $100 into something, you're only spending $3.84 on each of the 26 bets. There are 10 parlays by 2. So 2 by 10. There are 10 parlays by 3. There are 5 parlays by 4 and 1 5-team parlay. And I know it doesn't sound all that spectacular, but if you have like these small plus 150s to plus 175, plus 200 dogs, and you start to hit 3 or 4 out of 5, and you've got that last leg to hit, you're looking at some nice paydays. And you're going to lose less because we know that parlays is a losing kind of proposition overall. But if you pick your right spots, you're going to win on weeks. You can even make a profit in certain circumstances on only 2 winners. And once you get into 3 winners, you are going to be in profit, even if they're minus 110s. And once you get 4 winners, now you're really doing pretty well. And if you go 4 out of 5, that was some nice insurance. So those are some things I wanted to clarify. Was there anything else that the guys were mentioning?
Yeah, round robin is good, and of course we'll keep going over that as the season progresses with different opportunities. But I wanted you to touch base on something you know very well, and that is contest betting. A lot of the viewers are currently in one of the football contests that we have, and I thought maybe you might want to give some strategy out or talk a little bit about as we head into week 2 here on what to do in these contests.
I'm talking to all you guys that are 5-0 and 4-1 and 0-5 and 1-4. Not much has happened yet. If you had a horrible week and you're 1-4 or 0-5 and there's a booby prize to chase, don't chase the booby prize. Like if you're in circa millions. I mean, some private contests, pick 5 contests may have different types of rules, but one bad week is not going to spoil the season. Don't get disillusioned. The year I finished very high up in circa. I started off, I think, 0-5 or 1-4 and finished in 5th place. So all is not lost. And for you guys that are 5-0 and 4-1 and you're feeling all good about yourself, and you ain't done anything yet. Keep it all in perspective. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Just pick winners. Don't start getting a little full of yourself. 1 week is nothing. And even if this keeps up for 4 weeks, that's really not much. It's a long season.
Great advice from one of the best there is, Las Vegas Chris. And I do want to mention, coming up next week, Chris, give him a little teaser because you have a concept. Oh, I knew it. How do you like that? No pun intended. Tell him what's coming up, my man.
Here's what I don't want you guys to do. It's a really simple concept. Don't marry your parlays and your teasers. And what do I mean by marry? You should not be placing teasers and parlays that start at the same time. I want you guys to think about that. I'm going to be back next week to talk about that more.
Great advice across the board there, Las Vegas Chris. We certainly appreciate the time here, my friend, but we're not done spreading the knowledge. Our good friend, VR, Gianni the Greek, it is gold time, and he's got plenty of it for this week's NFL Week 2 lineup. What's going on, VR? What do you got for us?
All right, it's time for NFL. Keep in mind, no better week than week 2. Why? Overreaction. We've only played 1 game, and yet there's been 6-7 days to talk about that one result. That's why bettors are adjusting their power ratings. Futures are being talked about. Teams are being penciled in for the Super Bowl or penciled out of the playoffs based on one result. We as bettors, we don't do that. We sit back and we take advantage of those overreactions. I have a handful of sides for you, a couple of totals as well. Keep in mind, practice proper money management or none of this matters. We're going to start off in primetime Thursday night because I will not be in the steam room for that. But on Sunday, I will be breaking down each and every game in detail with my group so they see my approach and, more importantly, all the actionable info coming in. That's why I won't waste time digging deep into these matchups. I'll just share the info. You do the work. Start off Minnesota, Philadelphia. I made the mistake of jumping out on Philadelphia on the teaser because I expected teaser protection and this one to move up. I made that mistake. I talked about last week, you want to bet teasers late, except for those times where there's such EV, you're afraid of losing the opportunity, and that was the case. But with the Eagles getting that win in first week, and they didn't win by double digits, you saw some money come in the other way. So now I'm sitting on a teaser that I wish I didn't place, even if it does win. And more importantly, forget the teaser, there's even steam the other way. There's sharp money on the Minnesota Vikings at +7. That's why we're looking at +6 right now. But there's also a lot of sharp money on the team total under for Minnesota. That makes me think the under in the game may be a play. Minnesota covers this one. and the team total does go under, probably going to be looking at a much lower scoring game. I haven't touched anything yet, haven't released any premium play, so use the information how you wish, but I can confirm with certainty there's sharp money on Minnesota Vikings getting a touchdown, even at 6.5 with one of the groups. That's why you're looking at 6, and the under 21 team total for Minnesota. Move on to Sunday. 4 totals, so I'll go through them real quickly. Ravens, Bengals over 44.5. Niners, Rams under 39.5. Then just one more was the Steelers, Browns on Monday night under 39. Again, with the totals, you want to be cautious because the limits are low early on in the week. A lot of times they get dummied up, dummied down, so that later as the limits increase, you're able to come in on the side you actually like for 3, 4, 5, 10x the amount of money at a much better line, which is why you have to be very cautious and monitor line moves as I teach in the steam room. Now let's talk about some sides. Start off with the Chargers at -3. Key number, got to be careful there. I like them on the road as well. Seattle Seahawks against the Lions, game 269, plus 5.5. And then another doggy, the Bears at +3. Look at the Bears getting some steam at +3. And then move on to the Buffalo Bills, who underperformed on Monday night, now laying 8.5. And that's one of those overreactions, which would have been double digits if not for that Monday night game. So I think that's why we're seeing some sharp money come in on the Buffalo side. Kansas City Chiefs -2.5. Also game 275 on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then I really like this one. This is mean reversion written all over it. My third factor, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. -2.5, -2.5, -20, -3, -3, -10, -3, -15, -3, -20, Cincinnati money line. So they got down on every possible way on Cincinnati where they don't have to lay more than 3. Follow, fade, or ignore. Just know Cincinnati's heavily steamed, a lot of sharp money like that side to bounce back over the Ravens. And like I said, they also bet that game over, expecting some points. Now we have two-way steam, Giants in Arizona. One group hits me with the Giants -4. The other one comes back and asks for Arizona +4.5 today. Who's right? Who's wrong? I have no clue. Based on my power ratings, I think the number is pretty much right where it is. So pretty much for me, I'm going to lose juice either way unless it lands on 4 since I take a percentage of the accounts. Then move on to the San Francisco 49ers, no team finer, laying a touchdown on the road. Doesn't matter. They laid the touchdown. That's why you're looking at 8. Here's what you need to do with 49ers. Wrap them into teasers. They are as plus EV on a teaser as you are going to get. The other part of the equation is what you're going to have to figure out. My best advice is you want to tease down. Yes, teasing up through 3 and 7 is advantageous, but not as advantageous as teasing down through 3 and 7. The favorite side is more advantageous. So if you could find any of those favorites that are hovering above 7.5, bring them down. Otherwise, you're going to have to find one of those 2, 2.5s, 1, 1.5s, and bring it up through that key number. But rest assured, if you're laying more than -120 on a teaser, don't bet them. You're not going to win long term. Make sure you find 120s. There's even 110s out there. There's multiple books that are high profile that offer 6-point teasers at -110. There's no reason in 2023 why anyone shouldn't be laying at least 120 or less. If you're laying more than 120 on a 6-point teaser, you're getting robbed and it's no longer beatable. There's no reason for you to be betting any teasers because the EV is just not going to be there. You're gambling. So with that said, I wish you all the best of luck, whether you follow, fade, or ignore. Come to the steam room on Sunday. I'll be isolating those strongest moves, and more importantly, just so much information comes in, and we see what the public's doing and get to see some of those line moves, which are legit, which aren't. Just a lot of fun in there. Thank you again for your time. Best of luck this weekend. God bless.
All right, VR, appreciate it as always. You gotta love the gold, and he's got plenty of it each and every week here on Bet On It. And just a quick reminder, if you're new to Wager Talk TV and this is the first time you've seen Bet On It, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Nobody's got more content, whether it be the NFL, college football, than we do. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, become part of the Wager Talk family as we get ready for some best bets here. And Marco, of all the week 2 matchups here, where are you looking to go here this week for a best bet?
Well, Joe, I'm going to go the ugly route. But before I get to that, I want to tell the viewers, hey, if you watched last week's show, you know we swept the board with our plays here on the NFL show. College show, full disclosure, as I said on the college show, so don't be hating me for just bragging about winners. I had a bad college show last week. But we nailed it in the NFL, and we have been nailing it for our clients. You want to come on board, I'll give you 7 days for the price of 3. A 3-day package costs $69. If you use coupon code MD69 at checkout, buy a 7-day package, use that coupon code, you're going to get 7 days for $69. That's like getting 4 free days, guys. Head over to wagertalk.com, go to my homepage, put it in the shopping cart, and put the coupon code in. All right, let's get to this week's best bet. And guys, I'm going to go to a game that Joe already talked about, but I'm not looking at a total. I'm looking at a side. We're going to go to the Giant game. They're going to head out to Arizona. Now, guys, we all know and heard about it all summer about the tanking in Arizona. It looks like this team was tanking. And so, of course, what happened in week 1? They're getting a touchdown from Washington. So many people in Survivor Contest took Washington because that was the game theory play to take. Use up Washington. Not going to have a lot of chances to use them during the course of the season in a Survivor spot. And boy, they just barely survived. It was a 1-point game in the fourth quarter before Washington kicked a field goal to go up by 4 and hold on for the win. But for those of you that laid the points with Washington, wasn't a good outcome. But here's the difference. 1, Washington, they thought they just had to show up and they were going to win. They were reading about that all summer long too, especially once they cut Colt McCoy. This team was tanking. 2, you had an inexperienced quarterback. Sam Howell was making his second career start, and he was doing it in a brand new offense. We know Eric Bieniemy come over from Kansas City to run his offense here. Well, last time I looked, Sam Howell's no Pat Mahomes. So you were going to have growing pains with Washington. Now, it's a totally different story this week. Why? Because the Giants, after getting their asses kicked 40-0, they're not taking anybody for granted. I don't care if you're tanking or not. You're coming to play. You got embarrassed. You want to make a message. You want to get that bad taste out of your mouth. You're going to come and bring it all. Daniel Jones, I'm not a fan, but he sure is better at this juncture than Sam Howell. He'll be able to move the football. Arizona, the only reason they stayed in that game were the Washington mistakes last week. Joshua Dobbs, I like the guy. He was a former Pittsburgh Steeler backup. He's not going to beat you with dumb turnovers. But let's face it, that offense is as bland as it can be. They're not going to be able to trade points with the Giants in this one, in my opinion. And the Giants get a lead. They're not taking their foot off the gas, like I said, because they got taken out behind the woodshed last week. This is a spot where I will take, and this may be the squarest looking play I've ever taken here on Bet On It. But you know what? Even once in a while, SpongeBob SquarePants goes to the window and cashes a ticket too. This is the spot. Lay it with the Giants. I've got them, winning this one by 17 or more. Go ahead and lay the points with the New York Giants.
That's a lot of... Marco, I love it. As a matter of fact, if you want to go ahead, the Giants, and score 40 points, I got no problem there. Still like the over in that one, so still think the Giants are the right side as well there. All right, so for my best bet, and I'm gonna go back. We talked a little bit about some rookie quarterbacks. I took Bryce Young as my dog here at home for Monday night, and I'm gonna take Anthony Richardson on the road in this one, taking on what is, without a shadow of doubt to me, one of the worst offensive teams in the NFL. And I like Stroud. I think he's got a bright future, but it is not going to happen when he is running for his life every play when he drops back. Now, unfortunately for him, That's exactly what's going to happen again in this matchup. Why? Well, I'll tell you this right now. Statistically, the Indianapolis defensive front grades out better than the Ravens did. And the Ravens were in his face the entire game. That is not going to get any better. Why? We already know Houston started the season without 3 of their projected starting offensive linemen. They just lost another one in the last game. And that means they're going to be dealing with the 9th, 10th, or 11th offensive linemen that they have on the roster. It is not good offensively. They have absolutely 0 wide receivers that'll put a threat into anybody in the secondary. Not to mention, Stroud's not going to have any time to throw. On the other side, you got to love what Steichen is doing with Richardson. And while, yes, I thought there was a lot of positive signs in what the kind of game that he called, not just running the ball, but also allowing him to throw the ball. And that secondary is in shambles of Houston. Stingley is an absolute train wreck. He couldn't cover Marco in the secondary, much less anybody else now that they're going to throw down the field. They also have one of the other starting quarterbacks is also had left that last game against the Ravens. So they've got backups everywhere. Houston is not a team that I would look to back in this spot, and you're saying, well, rookie quarterback versus rookie quarterback. No, I give the edge to Steichen. I certainly give the edge to Richardson in this particular spot. He's got more weapons, and he's got the better defensive front. It's going to be a long day for Stroud. I think Indianapolis wins this, and I think they win it going away. And there you have it. We've got ourselves across the board. Marco, we've got some dogs, we got some best bets, we got some totals, we got primetime games. We got a little bit of everything here as we show you right now a recap of all the bets that we've got going on here for this week. And the good news is Marco he swept the board last week here on this show. So no doubt we are looking for him to do it again this week and looking to cash a whole lot of tickets this week. So once again, guys, if you are new here to Wager Talk and to bet on it, if it's game previews you like, strategy you like, best bets that you like, well, you don't have to go anywhere. That video on your screen right now, we got plenty more on this week when it comes to not only the NFL, but college football. So just simply go ahead, click on that video, and you'll be off and running previewing all the games on the card in week 2 of the NFL, as well as week 3 in college football. Want to thank VR, Gianni the Greek. Want to thank, of course, Ralph Michaels on behalf of Marco, Kelly, Stewart, Andy Lang in the prop shop. We appreciate the time, guys. Best of luck with all your plays this weekend. Come back and join us again next week for another edition of Bet On It. We'll see you then.